actual document. And then we can kind of talk through the components of the document and really looking for your feedback on, what is strong about the document? What do you like? What might be missing that in the document that hasn't been considered yet? Have we set the context well for this section of the plan? Is the future state on target? Have we missed any important accomplishments? And are our goals strong enough or the right goals to have? I do want a caveat for those of you who haven't seen this document before. This document is really around content. We are having it wordsmithed and then reformatted into more of a marketing type feel presentation about it. So we're not so much looking for wordsmithing as we are looking for depth of content and purpose and meaning, and really being specific, I think, in the outcomes or the future state that we're looking for and how we're going to get there. So does that make sense to everyone? And if you feel strongly about specific language that should be stated or emphasized, we're also happy to hear that kind of feedback from you as well. So I know that you all, and since we're such a small group, why don't we just do a quick round of introductions? So everyone knows who I am, so I'll throw it to Michael.
Hey everyone, Michael Nagello, President and CEO of the Eastern Connecticut Workforce Investment Board. I'll pass this. Yeah.
I'm Scott Cull. I'm the Chief Data Officer at the Office of Policy and Management. I can't see who is on the screen. I know Nordia is here, so do Nordia. Sorry.
Hi, everyone. Nordia Savage, Director of at the Connecticut Project, overseeing jobs and economic security.
Right, and I see Senator Wong just joined us. Senator, we're just introducing ourselves.
Hi, thank you for all that you all do. It's just a pleasure to be a part of it and want to help and contribute any way I can.
Thank you so much for being here, especially this really important discussion on data, right? It's the foundation of everything that we do. Karen?
If I may, we are in the General Assembly today in general law debating about artificial intelligence and the data utilization and how it's going to impact the marketplace. And one big component of it is workforce development. So there's a big shout out in that part of the bill because it is going to be transformative, but nevertheless, we need the talent and the skill sets to be able to adapt to it. So this is particularly important. And thank you again. I mean it sincerely. Thank you for all the great work you all do.
Well, thank you so much for all your support. I know that you attend all of our meetings and we have conversations outside of them as well. So we really do appreciate that.
Pleasure.
I'll throw it to Karen.
Hi, everybody. Karen Quisnell, Office of Workforce Strategy.
Excellent. And then Dominique.
Hello, everybody. Dominique Johnson here, Grant Secretary at OWS.
Great. And then we have two others on, and I'm sorry, I can't pronounce your last name. Who would like to go next? Oh, you're on mute.
Nikisha Grant, OIC of New London County.
Thank you, Nikisha.
And this is Heriberto Cajigas, Labor Department Manager of Community Advocacy at the WIOA unit. Good afternoon.
Thank you for joining us. Appreciate that. It's nice to be grounded in the DOL compliance of data in this discussion. Great. So Dominique, if you could pull the document back up, I think we can just kind of go section by section. We've got 25 minutes here, so we should be able to have a rich conversation around what is included in the document. So when I think about data, I'll just give you my kind of brief overview here is we do have a real opportunity here in Connecticut. We can't answer some very simple questions around our workforce system because we do not have an integrated data collection, management, and reporting tool. So when we're asked, what is the investment of workforce in the state of Connecticut, that requires a very large effort to go to all the different state agencies and the workforce boards and do a manual data collection of that. And when we ask questions around, say, diversity and equity and who is being served, again, not every program collects the same data. So we don't always have the same amount or types of data. And again, it's a very manual effort of digging through probably hundreds of different workforce development programs and investments across the state. So what makes this so important is really thinking about how do we align our data management system. And currently we have two systems that are broadly used in the state. The first is CT Hires. This is a platform that lives at the Department of Labor and has really been developed to be the compliance data system for federal WIOA. So all of the federal WIOA workforce programs are required to be on CT Hires and to report, collect and report out specific data. And I'm going to pause there and make sure, because we have our data experts from DOL and the workforce board. So if any of you would like to comment on that to make sure that I'm accurate in my statements there, I'm happy to have your input.
I guess, Kelly, I would say, CT Hires I'd say it's a mixed bag. I think it's more than just compliance at this point, but, it's certainly limited in terms of its use, right? If, the first question is, if everybody puts all their programs in it, what could we get from it? And I think that would certainly be more than compliance. And then the second limitation is obviously just the capabilities, right? What we as a state have invested in it. So I think we're trying to get our arms around its potential if we did both of those things, but just want to highlight that there is more potential, in it than how we currently use it. So
yeah, I agree with you, Michael, and that was going to be my next kind of statement, is that we're kind of utilizing that system for a compliance system where it does have a lot of additional bells and whistles and capabilities that the state hasn't invested in and hasn't fully utilized that platform. The CT Hires platform is driven by Geographic Solutions, and they're in more than half of the states across the country, filling this role in other states, and other states are using it at varying degrees of capabilities and success. So to Michael's point, there's a big opportunity there to fully understand what the system is fully capable of if we made that investment and had more users and more agencies utilizing that platform. The other platform that we have, and Scott, if you want to talk a moment about P20 Win, I'm sure you're going to do a much better job at it than I will, if you want to give an overview there.
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to do this. So P20 Win, it's state longitudinal data system, or as it says here, integrated data system. They're two similar terms. I actually prefer integrated data system, but it often goes by longitudinal data system. It's a way that we can link data across different agencies to measure outcomes. It's particularly useful for education and workforce because it allows you to knit together data from the patchwork of different programs that I think you're talking about earlier in here. So again, there's dozens of different workforce programs run across a lot of different agencies. And to measure outcomes for that, you need to link data across the different agencies, sort of the different ways that government has kind of siloed or fragmented that up a little bit. And so P21 is a framework through which we can do that. It's been around for about 10 years. It's in state statute. It probably has been a little underutilized in the past, but we're very close to, I think, being able to use it to measure outcomes in a more holistic way for the workforce system. And it gets at the ability to kind of see how people navigate different programs that move across different agencies. If you're going from adult ed or technical high schools or post-secondary programs or workforce training programs that are run through labor or run through other agencies, we can use the framework for P21 to measure outcomes for those. There's 15 agencies that participate right now. It goes cradle to career, early childhood, K-12, post-secondary, Department of Labor, most of the Health and Human Services agencies. So as we start to look at things like benefits cliffs, the different types of barriers to employment, we have data on homelessness, child welfare system, foster care, the main benefits programs, Medicaid, TANF, SNAP, homelessness through those agencies, and have started to add some of the criminal justice agencies recently. So it's a good holistic framework that you can use to link data together across agencies. I keep saying framework because I think the big thing that's different than CT hires is that P21 is more of an integrated framework for the governance, the policies and the procedures, the legal agreements, and then the technical means to actually move and link the data across agencies. CT hires is a software platform, whereas P21 is not. There isn't a specific software platform. It's not a vendor solution. It's something that's sort of part of the state statute. We're in the midst of kind of a modernization project right now. So we're looking at improving the technical infrastructure so the system is more responsive. We have a meeting tomorrow morning where we're going to talk about this in some detail. And there was a hearing yesterday talking about disconnected youth, and there's a lot of attention there on looking at improving the ability of P21 to produce annual reporting, because we use the P21 data to power the disconnected youth report that got a lot of attention this year and had a lengthy hearing yesterday. But to be able to do that on a regular basis, an annual basis, which I think is the same thing that you're looking at for workforce, we have, again, like some of the procedural things, but we really need to improve the technology footprint so that it's more secure and more easy to kind of manage and repeat some of this reporting over time so that they're not one-off ventures. So that at a high level hopefully covers the basics of it. And again, I think there's an interaction where that CT hires, the different programs that agencies use for collecting data can be integrated. And hopefully that moves us towards the future state that you have listed here.
Yeah, thank you for that, Scott. And I think, it's important to note that P21, is not a data collection system. So they have to go and collect this data in all of these dispersed places and then pull that together. So we can put together, like we have a P21 research request right now on programmatic outcomes. I think that was a $1 million plus grant that is paying for all that work to be done. And then we're going to get a snapshot of a moment in time. What our future state really would look like is if we can get our state agencies and our state education partners fully utilizing an integrated system, then we should be able to pull those types of reports on a quarterly basis or an as needed basis at any time, because the data would be in one place. And so that's really what we're looking for is a future state. Why is this really important? It's not just important to understand what we're doing and what we're spending, but what are our best practices and our best programs? So what investments are we making and what are those outcomes of those investments? And being able to compare them against other types of programmatic formats. What's interesting to me is being kind of newer in this role is every funded project has strings attached to it and requirements that need to be fulfilled. And what ends up happening is instead of being able to fund best practice programs and the things that we know work, we have to start all over again because we have a new funding source. So this funding source requires X, Y, and Z, and the other funding source required A, B, and C, so you can't continue to fund A, B, and C with X, Y, and Z. And so we start over because we don't have the vision to be able to see all of that in front of us and be able to measure those outcomes. We tend to silo the funding into different buckets, and it makes it difficult for those that we're trying to serve to understand what is accessible to them and what is the best fit for them and what has the highest outcomes. So we tend to have, again, money comes into different agencies, and that agency has some workforce dollars. They may not understand the workforce board system and the programming that already lives between the community colleges as a program provider, the workforce board system connecting individuals to all of the resources and support services that they need and connecting them into those educational programs. So we might then be using that money to create another program that's disconnected to that. Whereas if we understood where all of the workforce ecosystem lives, we could have some sustainability by braiding funding sources together across different state agencies, grants, state dollars to really scale those best practices and provide, the flywheel of the outcomes, programmatic outcomes. So that's why I think this year, a huge focus of the time of the OWS with support of all of our stakeholder groups is really going to be focusing on this pillar. To do that, we've been fortunate to receive philanthropy money from the Connecticut Project, for which Nordia works for the Connecticut Project. And her previous role was in one of our regional workforce boards. So she very much understands the WIOA system and requirements. So we're going to be working together with some support for Jobs for the Future to understand what CT Hires is capable of doing, what we want a system to look like, and then be able to understand where the gaps are so that we can fill those gaps in. Whether it's being able to find or utilize CT Hires as the platform, or if we might have to find platforms that can be integrated into it. And the other point here is really the workforce portal, Career Connect portal that has been developed and led by the Eastern Workforce Investment Board by Michael's organization. We've been almost overprescribed in that portal by having a virtual front door into the AJCs and sector-based training programs. Over 16,000 people have enrolled in the portal in the last year and a half. And I can share with you the data that just shows the upward swing exponentially of people coming into the portal after we went through a few of the kinks and we really started pushing some marketing dollars with our U campaign there. And we'll be we have more than 6,000 people who are looking for short-term job training programs, which is the funding that we have for those folks within that funded ARPA allocation. So I'm going to pause there. I talked a lot, and I would love to get your feedback on and insights on some of the comments that we've all shared here today.
I guess two points from me, Kelly. One is I'm glad that you verbally highlighted CT Hires in the introduction and the context here. I'm wondering why it's not in the, kind of the work to date. I don't, unless I'm missing it. And then
It's a good shout out, Michael. Sometimes the most obvious things are the things that get missed. So
Yeah.
we will
Okay.
definitely be adding that.
I'm not sure that I see jobs.ct.gov as necessarily fitting under this pillar. It's more, to me, that's more of a, similar to the Career Connect portal that you're talking about, right? More of a entry point for job seekers. So, and then my other, I guess more of a question is in the future state, I wonder, at the risk of being very uninspiring, if develop a single system is kind of maybe a little too black or white. If we, I think moving towards a single system would be a big success. There may be barriers for getting everyone that OWS has in mind onto a single system that we just can't overcome. But I think making progress towards a single system could also be really impactful. So I'm not sure if the future state is like the ideal future state or more of a goal that we'll, evaluate against in a few years. But I do think that moving towards that and not just, hitting it shouldn't be the only goal there.
Yeah, thank you, Michael, for that. And I think, adding integrated in there might be helpful as well, right? Because a single system may not really ever be achievable, but more integration of systems could be. So what does everybody else think about that future state?
I mean, I'd agree with what Michael's saying, that I think developing a single system is tough. Integration, I think, that's an important aspect of it too, that it's not just having one piece of software, it's the ability to connect different types of platforms that different types of workforce providers are using so that you're able to look at the outcomes. I think you're looking at, you said not to wordsmith, so I'm going to resist the temptation, but you're looking at for things like consistency. What you want from the OWS perspective is to be able to report the outcomes, understand, make apples to apples comparisons across different types of things and say like, okay, I have a sense of what's happening for the workforce investments. But they don't all need to use a single system. You need to be able to get the consistent data kind of at the end of that process.
Yeah, I think the other part of it too is that other agencies can see what is happening within the workforce system so that they have a real-time understanding of what's happening in other agencies and with the workforce boards and the community college system, so that when they receive workforce funding, whether it's state or federal dollars, they can have a better understanding where they can integrate instead of recreate in some cases. And maybe that should be reflected in that future state as well. A braiding of funding sources together, I think, is an important component.
Kelly, this is Heriberto. I just want to make a quick little comment. I'd like to acknowledge Mike's point of view regarding CT hires in this slide. So yeah, additional context on CT hires, the functionality of it is important because there's some opportunities within the CT hire system. And if there's going to be some type of evaluation from Jobs for the Future, I think it's important that we provide that type of level of information back to the board. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will definitely be adding that in there. And Jim, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome. Sorry, I wasn't sure when to jump in, but I know we haven't met in person. I've been working with Laura quite a bit. And so just so other folks know, so my name is Jim Mendyk. I've been with the state for 36 years in different capacities, most of it at UConn in higher education, overseeing technology. I currently oversee technology for the technical schools, CTEX, and then now I'm a liaison, a customer success manager for OWS, DECD, DOH, and CTEX. So one thing, and I was part of the P20 when it first started up. So I do have some background in this. That's why when I asked Laura, should I jump into the data or the education? She goes, oh, we need some people in data. But one perspective, and kind of to reiterate what folks have already said, and I think Laura and I have talked about this, is really trying to get one system is going to be almost impossible because there's different needs. But I think, and you've already said it, integrating the systems. But the other thing that we're finding, because at CTEX, we are rolling out a new career center. So what we're finding is that different agencies have different needs, but a lot of them overlap. So they're collecting overlapping data. So a lot of this is, what is the data source of record is what I always call it. What is the cleanest data source? So one, it's identifying what are the different agencies collecting, because there's a lot of duplication, but they all need it in their format, right? So it's how do we how do I identify what data is actually being collected? Are there gaps in what needs to be collected? And then how do we synthesize that or aggregate it into, and I look at, like, the old term data warehouse, but how do we aggregate that data and provide for I say real time, or as close to real time reporting as we can. So definitely achievable, but I think it really is a lot of the agencies working together to identify the data, pull it together, and then see what's needed to constantly improve it.
Thank you for that. And we're going to be tapping you, I'm sure, as we start working on the Connecticut project, work with your expansive experience and view across the data system. And I think, you hit a really good point is, data is collected in multiple agencies and they report that data out, but it could be overlapping of other data. So, for example, the workforce boards use the community colleges a lot as a program provider. And so they count the number of people that they're training as a collective whole. And so does the workforce, so does the community college, CT State. And so we might be counting people more than once.
Oh, right.
Because they're being counted in both places. So we really have to get down to that individual data to be able to see where they're at. And if we had a repository of that, could be helpful. We also think about it from a customer perspective. If I'm a customer of multiple agencies and services, I have to give my data over and over and over and over again to every agency. Wouldn't it be great if that person had their data living in a source where it could be accessed and pulled into integrated systems so that individual can be served seamlessly?
Oh yeah, no, I mean that sounds like a utopia, but it's not impossible to get there. I think we can get there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, just to build on Jim and Kelly's comments, I do think the kind of customer perspective, if that can be referenced here somewhere, just to make it more user friendly and less less burdensome and redundant for the participants, that would be something great to move towards also.
Yeah, I think we could add that to the future state as well.
Could I ask Kelly, one thing I know OWS has done in the past, and I know you're planning to do this, but I wasn't sure if it fits in this bucket in the plan or somewhere else in the plan, is just the building block for some of what I think Jim's talking about is trying to figure out, is it their programs serving the same people? Are they collecting the same elements? Are they collecting in the same way? The one building block is just really inventorying what are the workforce development programs that in this case, that OWS is focused on, getting an inventory of programs. Once you get the inventory of programs, starting to go into a little more detail, what things are being asked and what data is being collected from individuals and the intake forms and so on. And I know that's tough because there's dozens of programs across a lot of different places, but I was curious sort of if that fits or where that fits into the plan, that inventorying exercise. It's not I think like you said at the beginning, this is not the sexiest group among the ones here necessarily. That's not the sexiest activity, but it is like, it's a critical sort of building block to say like, all right, what are we even talking about for programs? What data is being collected? And if that's where that fits in the plan.
Yeah, it sounds like to me, right now we're just doing a broad cast of a net of what is out there for workforce programming right now, but we're not digging into what data specifically is collected. But Nordia, do you feel that that's something within the scope of the CT project?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think we could talk about it at our May 15th meeting. So, yeah.
Great. Excellent. Okay, well, we only have about 2 minutes left, and then we're going to get an abrupt pullback to the main group. So can we just take the last 2 minutes to take a look at, oh, no, put that back up, Dominique, please, at the outcomes and what we're looking to measure. And where is that? So is there another page to this document? Dominic, we're now on the education and pathways. I think you went too far. Okay, that's it. This is the moving forward. Okay, so how do we measure success? That's my question. What does success look like? If in a year or 2 years, we look down the road and we say, this is where we'd like to get, how do we measure that?
I think part of it is you can answer the questions you get asked. Like you're the one who gets all the questions about workforce, and that you feel like, okay, like I can answer more of these. To me, that's sort of the test. And the
That's-
customer experience, those two pieces. So you happy, customers happy. Those are.
I do like the customer part as well. And I think that does have to do with, creating some type of identifier, but I think how to measure success, to me, a lot of it, and again, from an IT perspective, it's always like, what's your current state? So a lot of times it's what's your current state? What are we measuring? Do we even know what we're measuring? Like, what are we missing? Where are the gaps? So really identifying the current state. I think we all have just discussed what is the end goal. And then we say, are there milestones in between? And if we're hitting those milestones, that's how we measure success, that we're farther along a year from now than where we are today. But you have to start with, where are we today?
And I would say it should be able to connect to the DEI pillar, where we can answer